I'm Glenn Herbert. I'm a writer and an editor with Our Kids, and happy today to be speaking to two parents to talk a bit about the experience of looking for a school and ultimately finding a school, and maybe in these cases more than one school that really fits for your child. And so today I have Jennifer Reynolds. She currently has a son in grade 11, and they started with the independent school system in grade 4. And also on the call is Lisa McCabe. She has a son currently in grade 9, and they've been with the private school system, or within the private school system, right from grade 1. So maybe Jennifer, I'll start with you. When you first started looking for a school, what kind of things were you looking for? What did you think you were looking for anyway?
We were looking for a co-ed school that was very important, and looking for something that was within our community, something that was close by that we could easily walk to, that our son could get to, um, and somewhere where he would have the opportunity to be involved with all kinds of things, that he could learn about music and arts and drama. And we were so lucky that all of those things were found in one space. We went to a number of different schools to check it out, but really the one that was the closest to us was the one that ticked all of the boxes and more. And some of the times we didn't even know what we didn't know. So as we were visiting the schools, we learned about the different options and things that they had.
And how familiar were you with private schooling or independent schooling? Had you gone as a student, or was this an entirely new experience for you?
No, my husband and I both went to public school, and we had done a little bit of reading about it. We had known a few families who were at the school and heard great things about it. And then the more we got involved with the community events and going to the homecomings and some of the performances that they had made available to the community, we saw what a great environment it was. And it just felt, it was all about feeling. And I think when we picked the grade school and when we picked the high school, ultimately the number one thing was that it felt like the right place. You walked in and you knew that was the place.
So Lisa, I see you nodding your head. That was your experience too. It was the feel that ultimately led you to the school that you went to?
Ultimately, it was. And just in preparation for this little discussion, I reflected with my son this morning when I was dropping him off at school, and I said, "So, do you remember when we went through that process, and what was it?" And so, just as you were saying, Jennifer, like for him, I mean, there's so many factors that go into getting us to that point of feeling good, and that's ultimately what it came down to. And I was surprised as a parent because we ended up going with, the school we ended up going with, was different than what I had thought would be the best fit for our family and for my son. And at the end of the day, he said, "Mom, it just feels right." So that's.
I think that's interesting. And I was started by saying, when I asked you, Jennifer, what were you looking for? What did you think you were looking for? I think often parents think they're looking for one thing, and they might say something like rigorous academics or a challenge or something. But often what it is that leads them to a school is a feeling. And so Lisa, for you, where did that feeling come from? At what moment did you realize it? Was it through a visit, or when did you start having that sense of the place?
So basically, that moment was after so many different steps leading up to that point. And so the consideration, for academics, for team sports, for whether it be co-ed or same gender. Basically, what was a real determining factor and what was really important in our case were the school visits. So for my son, once he had an opportunity to actually go to the school, and I will say independent of myself, when he had an opportunity to spend the day at the school or a few hours integrating into the school, that's when he got a real sense of what would be like for him and what would that fit be like. So, and then having had that experience at a few other schools, so he really had a good platform to do a comparison and then come up with that feeling we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of those things. And also, Jennifer, you mentioned that there were a number of boxes that you wanted to check and ultimately feel was an important one. But what were some of those other boxes? I assume some of them were quite practical.
moved from finding a grade school. That grade school ended in grade 8. And then I'm thinking about our most recent experience finding a high school. For the high school, it actually changed. Single gender school was very important for us. And so we wanted to find a single gender school. We wanted to find a school that had a lot of co-curriculars, a school where you could have be excellent in arts and excellent in athletics, as well as had the full suite of academics. We wanted our child, this was a big ask. We wanted our child to have an opportunity to be mentored by older boys, but we also wanted him to have the opportunity to be a mentor as well too. So to find both of those programs, I thought was very challenging. And we were able to find a school that had all of those things and community connection as well too. So what kind of opportunities, how will they help him fulfill his volunteer hours and service hours and whatnot too. And so all of those things, presented themselves. We made lists. We made pros and cons, or short lists of schools. We made pros and cons. But just like Lisa said too, we went to all of the visits. The visits were so important. We went to all of the open houses. We sent him there for events. We went to homecoming as a family. We went to performances. We went to all of those different things to get the feel and get the sense. And doing all of that background information just made us understand what was available. It almost presented new boxes that we could add on to our list and tick off and say, oh, we didn't know that this was even available. And yes, it's important to us, or maybe it's not as important as some of these other things. So just doing the legwork and going around and seeing what these schools, walking in, feeling them, seeing them, so important in finding the right fit.
Something I say to parents sometimes is when they're going to a school, what should they see, or what would be the most important thing for them to experience when they're there, and maybe to have a bit of fun. But I think it's also true. I say you should go to lunch, go to the cafeteria, see what's happening there, have a lunch. You'll see what the food is like if there's a if it's that sort of cafeteria. But also you'll get this incredible window on the world of the culture of the school.
That's what my sons would agree with that for sure.
Yeah, and so
the menu, when he saw the menu.
He saw the menu, so it was the food that attracted him. Lisa, were there moments like that for you that you thought, wow, this is, some instructive moment, whether it was in the cafeteria or in the halls or meeting a certain person? What was it?
Oh, so for my son, I get to just circle back to a couple of the things that were super important for us was location. And just the logistics of how does the family move in the morning and in the afternoon, and whether there's pickup, transit, walking, things like that. Believe it or not, that was something that was a really important part of our decision to have the overall fit. But the one thing was the climbing wall for my son, without giving away what school he's at. It was the climbing wall where, coincidentally, that's where everybody eats. So, that was something that was a defining moment for him. He felt right at home because he felt like he was at camp.
So both of you have essentially gone through the experience of finding a school twice, because you started at one school and then you changed. And Jennifer, you changed because you went from essentially an elementary school to a high school. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. And it was funny because my son, he understood the feeling and all the gifts that he had at his elementary school. And he guided us in how we would then pick the next school.
So in both of the schools that you ultimately chose, were they the first choice, or in both instances, or any instance, do you end up at the school that you expected initially to end up at?
No. And I think that's true in life. I didn't end up with the wedding dress I expected to pick either, but sometimes it's just the right fit. You have to try it on. You have to try lots of different things. You have to be open. And it's not just as I said, my son guided the process. He knew it was important to him, and it was really important for my husband and I to listen to his needs. We went from a small school that was a big warm hug, and I still cry and hug and love all those teachers, but he wanted a bigger school experience with a bigger footprint and a big theater and a big track and a big football field and big classes. And so that was so important in guiding. And, you know, I was like, well, no, it's about the math program and the academics. And that was all there too. But his recommendations are what guided us to what we found, and then we found all kinds of other magical things, but that's not what I had in mind for him from the very beginning. But it is, I can't even imagine him being in any other place right now.
Lisa, you agree? In your experience, that's true as well?
Absolutely. And so we went through the process. Actually, my son he's at his third school. So, and you would think by the third time around, would we really be surprised and whatnot? But absolutely, to your point, Jen, like it was like, the thing is that I had something in mind as a parent, and that would be one thing that I would say to other parents who are applying and going through the admission process. It's intense, and it's definitely a family experience, and that it is, you know, you're putting together this application, and it is competitive. And that's something else to consider, that we're, you know, willingly putting our young children into a competitive process. And because not everybody gets in just because it's private school and you're willing to, you know, pay the fee and whatnot. So I did find though that what I thought would be the fit, pleasantly surprised by going through all the steps and seeing all the schools, that the right fit for my son and for our family in terms of, you know, where he's going to be happy, where are his friends, where is he going to thrive and be challenged. You know, at the end of the day, it was a different school, but absolutely thrilled, and it is the right fit for him. And yeah, he's super happy.
You did mention that competitive thing. So there are exams and there are kind of things that you need to do, interviews and things. What was that experience like for you and your son coming through that whole admissions process? Was it unnerving, or was it enjoyable, or both?
Well, it became like an extracurricular activity, actually. It really did, because it was a conscious effort. He wanted to apply and he wanted to go. He selected some schools, and so did I. And so it was a process that our family had decided to do together. And it required some time. It required time after school. It required time during school. So, you know, in terms of managing any extracurricular activities that the family was doing. So when I say that, what I mean and I'm referring to is that not only the actual application process, filling that out, my son did an entrance exam. And so for high school, for example, or for grade 7, the preparation actually started for him the summer of grade 5. And he's a very different person now than he was at that age. But to have the foresight to think like, this is a process, and to do all the different steps, and to almost work back when you're thinking about high school, because I mean, in grade 5, they're still quite little, you know. So you know, there were many different steps in the process.
And as people work through that, Jennifer, what kind of questions, or what are the most important questions that you think people should be asking of the administration, of the admissions officer, maybe even of the teachers at the school?
Asking what kind of, especially because we're in COVID times, I think looking at the technology, looking at the connectivity, how does learning work right now in the classroom? If it's synchronous, how does it work if we are all back at home again? And do you have the right setup at home? Is there that connection that the child can still have with their school? Is there, you know, some sort of mentorship and community that the school can still give if the kids are not there physically? So those are questions that I didn't have to ask at the time, but they're being answered right now in the environment that we're in. So I'm very happy about that. Also, really, I think the mentorship, and I've said this a few times, the mentorship, being mentored and being able to mentor is such a huge part of the process. So, seeing that that is in place in the school is so, so important. Just looking at the overall, health and wellness of the child. If your child is not, happy and is not connected to their school and their environment, then they're not going to learn, no matter how great the school is and what their scores are and how it boasts. And one of the other things that I think is really important too, and we had this in our grade school, is how, like, do they help place you at the next school? So when we were at our elementary school, they actually had a whole process where they would help us find the right high school fit for our kids. And so when you're looking at high school, is there a process, with the guidance department that they will help you find the best university or college fit for your kids? And is it just in Canada? Is it internationally? Those sort of things too. So, looking at that whole process is really important as well.
Lisa, anything that you think people should be asking about?
That was very well said, by the way, Jennifer. It was excellent. I wish I had have listened to this prior to going through the application process. I have just one child, so I'm always intrigued. I always say it's my first and last time at every activity, so I'm always impressed when I hear other parents within the process. The one thing I would say, Glenn, in terms of private school, it is an investment. It's an investment, in the children and in their activities and whatnot, but it's a financial investment. So I think to go in with your eyes wide open and to really look at that whole piece and to look at it for the long term, and if you are looking for bursaries and funding, make sure that that you are aware of all the possibilities in every school you're applying to, because at the end of the day, if your child gets into the school they really love and you were hoping that they would qualify for a bursary, and let's say bursaries don't start till grade 9, then that's a whole other factor that you would have to look into. I just say that just to be aware, because every school is not the same with regards to financing and whatnot.
Another thing to add that I didn't think about at the time, but I really appreciate now, is the parent involvement in the school and the communication with parents. Like, how can we be involved? I've once heard it referred to as a three-legged stool. So you have the parents, the kids, and the education system too. So how can you be involved as a parent? And I think ask those questions when you're visiting the school as well too. And if there isn't a place for you as a parent, and you're okay with it, then that's fine. But if you are expecting for there to be a place for you to be, not hover like a helicopter parent, but just be involved and know about what's going on. Different schools have totally different communication platforms and different ways for parents to be involved. So that's really important to think about.
Well, that raises and a bigger point is that, does the school feel comfortable to you as a parent? I mean, you're looking for your student, but it's got to be comfortable to you too, don't you think?
Absolutely. And the relationships with the teachers. I've had incredible relationships with the teachers at both of the independent schools that we've been at. And I would say I would have them over for, like, they could be my best friends. I would have them over for dinner. We have incredible conversations. And it just feels right. I have no problem reaching out respectfully with any questions or comments, or just saying, hello, I loved that assignment that I heard about at the dinner table tonight, or something like that, and having that relationship. And they're warm and they reply, and it's kind of cool to be able to go, like, high school is awesome right now. I wish I could go through my kids' high school. And I love hearing about it from both sides, from the teachers. I love hearing about it from the kids. And I think it's a fun time in our lives. And so we should be a part of it. There is a spot for us in this process.
Yeah, and I think in the life of the school, we talk about the community of the school. You're saying, think about the community. It is a community. It's a community that doesn't just include the administration and teachers and the students, but it's all those other people, parents, aunts and uncles, grandparents. Lisa, do you like your school? Do you feel part of the community there?
Oh, yes, very much so. I do feel part of the community, and I feel that I don't feel pressured, though, to be part of the community, and I don't feel pressured to be on a committee, so to speak, and because with your professional life and balancing work and whatnot. And but there's always that opportunity, and I do feel very comfortable, and it is an important factor, even though my child is he's the most important there. I mean, you also have to feel comfortable, not that it's a right fit.
Just thinking of the whole process of finding a school as you went through those processes, because you did it a number of times. Were there any surprises along the way? And that doesn't mean it's a good thing or a bad thing, but just something that you thought, I didn't expect that.
Well, yes, there was a surprise, and at the end of the day, the acceptance process was a bit of a surprise, in that they all come in. The acceptances come in within a matter of either hours, days, the morning of, and I didn't expect not to get much sleep the night before. I thought, it was a very exciting process, and I was anticipating how would this turn out for my son, and then also anticipating how would I parent through this, how would I help manage his expectations, and what if he didn't get into the number one school that he had hoped to go to, what if he was waitlisted. And I didn't expect to have to make such a quick decision, because it wasn't necessarily exactly what we had thought. So those are some things that were very exciting and somewhat unexpected, particularly more this round than the other two rounds when my son started in grade 1. And then again, he had a change of school for grade 4. So that would be one of the things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Often when I'm No, often when I'm touring schools, when I write the reviews, the feature reviews and things, and I visit schools, and it's great. And often I'll say to people there, if I were here for only 10 minutes, what thing would you show me? And I guess I would ask that for you in a more general sense. If a parent could only go to a school for 10 minutes, say for whatever reason, what do you think the most important thing they should see? What would it be? What would you say, you really should see this? If you can't see everything, then you should see X. What would that thing be?
It's just seeing the kids in their natural environment, just watching them do what they do, see what goes on, whether it's lunchtime or whether it's changing in the hall time, when classes change, just sort of the just the general mood, just the excitement. Drop off in the morning too, can be a little crazy. And how is that organized? Who's out there? I don't know. What's the greeting like for your child at the beginning of the day, especially if it's in elementary school? If the teachers are out there and the administration is out there to greet the children, that is like a wonderful way to start the day. You're wanted, you're welcome here. So for elementary school and high school, like, how are the classes changing? What is it like? Is it crazy chaos? Are people happy? What's the mood like?
I think that's so true what you say about, well, how does the day begin? And that's something I always look to do whenever I visit a school, is I get there early before the buses arrive or whatnot and see how the day begins. It's very different school to school, isn't it? I mean, and there are those instances where the headmaster, the principal, is out greeting the students, or maybe it's somebody else. But it's so important. It starts the whole day, and it's always very charming to see that. In any case, Lisa, same question to you. What would you point people to? What should they be if they only had a limited amount of time?
Well, I think that you had mentioned the lunchroom, or seeing how kids and are interacting, and then also seeing them in the halls when they're changing classes, and seeing how the teachers are with the other students and how the students are with one another. And so I think that's something, if I had to spend 10 minutes, I'd really want to be around that. And then even seeing how they are, what's going on in the gym or in the playground, for example. What is that like, depending on the age of your kids?
Yes. How has your perception, Jennifer, of your school changed, or the schools that your child went to? How did it change, again, from when you first experienced it to after?
Our grade school is like home. Like, it is such a huge part in our heart, in our lives, that I just thought it would be a school, but it's a part of it's a part of our family history. It's a part of, like, you know, our child will always be an alumni, will always be associated with that school, will always have friends from that school. It was a really important, a really important start in his education system, where he found huge amount of confidence. So it's like family. I didn't ever expect it to be the same. And even high school, you know, it's an experience where you know, it's a little further away from our house, but I've gotten to know a lot of the boys, you know, that live all over the city that come to our house now, and they will be, I know, in my son's life for a long time too. So I do see it as family, and only having one child, I feel like I put him in a spot where he can have brothers as well too, and so that is really important to us. So it's a really strong connection in a lot of different ways. It's not just a 10-month a year thing, and it's not just a 8 to 3:30 thing. It's a life change, and it's definitely going to affect who he is.
Yeah. Lisa?
So I would just say, you know, it's been great in that it's been memories and lots of connections that happen from being at all the schools, and it's a real sense of community. And I find that with each school that my son has gone to, he's really, really proud to be an alumni. I know at this age saying they're alumni, but he feels really proud, and it's so amazing through other sports and other activities to see them connecting and to see their friendships still in place in those early formative ones, and then now seeing them, you know, build on that. And I would have to say, like, in the school that my son is in now, I'm just pleasantly surprised. It's just this flower that keeps blooming, and it's brighter and fuller than I ever thought. I know. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's good.
So again, just thinking of advice for prospective parents coming at this for the first time, maybe the first experience ever of private or independent schooling, the advice that we give them. I think, Jennifer, I think you said you were very organized, and take the time and be organized. Would that be the number one piece of advice?
Absolutely. And when we were starting for high school, for example, we started in grade 7, just by talking to the different parents and getting a sense of what was going on, having those conversations, getting all of the information. That helped us build a short list. And then the list just kept, you know, getting whittled down with the visits and being at the different events. You know, so the organized visits are great, and they give you a sense of what the school wants you to see, but make sure you go to the other things that are, you know, a little less planned, so that you can see what the school really is, and get those feelings. Or check it out online and talk to, you know, see if you can get into something online. It's a little harder right now with COVID. So, you know, you have to be a little bit more creative.
But when you say the other things like going to the holiday musical or the something
Yes,
social or whatever, all those things that maybe aren't necessarily
absolutely.
for prospective parents, but they're part of the school life.
Absolutely. So our high school has a homecoming, and that was the best picture of everything, because we got to see all the pomp, we got to see the bands playing, we got to see the sports teams, we got to see the kids interacting and cheering. For that, we got to see the kids that the event attracted. We got to meet a lot of families and stuff like that too. And so we really got a full picture of how everything worked. And that kind of sealed the deal for us. It was a fantastic day and really had a great picture of the community.
And Lisa, I think one of the things that you would say, I think you mentioned this earlier, is having your child go and spend the day in the school, spend the time in the school, maybe, you know, I guess just in a classroom, even all those sorts of experiences that are available.
Yeah, a lot of the schools will offer, you know, a student for the day, or they'll invite a small group of the kids who are applying also to see, so they can see how they interact. And there's often planned activities and whatnot. So to really, I think, encourage your child and to be part of that gives them a real sense of the school. The other thing I would say, though, I mean, you know, having been through the process, and if you're just starting the process, I think to make time to do these things, because you're probably going to apply to more than one school, often maybe 3 schools. And if there's approximately, 5 points of contact where you're having your child, you attend with your child, and then you attend a couple of events, and then your child is going to one of these um, you know days, applicant day at school. If you multiply that by 5 touch points by 3, you're now at 15 events, and you're working and you're doing this and that. So to really give yourself the time in the application process so that you can experience these things at each school, because at the end of the day, when you make your decision, you don't really want to have any questions. You want to make sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's have been dotted, and that's the feel that I think you're looking for.
And I think, is it also true that you need to keep an open mind? I think, Jennifer, you said that the schools that you ultimately chose weren't maybe the one that you initially thought you would get to. And Lisa, you're saying apply to at least 3 schools. Again, it's not about saying I want my kid to go to X school, but rather to say this is a process, and to keep an open mind. So I guess you would agree with that, Jennifer.
Absolutely. And in the end, we ended up applying to 2 high schools, and he was fortunate to receive offers from both. And it just like Lisa said, they come really fast, like on the same day, and you have to make a decision within a couple days. So we had actually booked off, I think we had received the offers on a Thursday or a Friday, and they were due on the Monday. So we canceled everything that we had on the Sunday, and we actually went to the 2 campuses, and we walked around with our list of pros and cons, and we walked around the campuses as well as a family, making the decisions. Ultimately, it was informed by my husband and I, it was our son's decision, because he knew himself, and we had prepared him with all of the things to make that decision, and it was the right decision.
And that, again, continuing on from the point of having the kid go in and experience and see what the right field is for them. Ultimately, you're choosing a school for the child, aren't you? Not for you. And maybe the school that would be the right fit for you as a grade 9 student is not necessarily the right fit for your current grade 9 student, I suppose. Well, I think that takes us to time. It's been a delight speaking with you, and I really appreciate you giving us your time today.